Raphael.
Hi,
Great.
Nick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Really cool to able to talk to you now.
Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. So let's begin. I saw an interview that you don't like the term true crime story, but you are telling a true crime story. Why don't you like the term, and why you don't put a friend of the family in that category?
I don't dislike the term true crime. I'm sort of like, whatever. That's the term that people use. I just don't necessarily think of these stories as the kind of story that true crime tends to refer to, in the sense that, the films that I'm excited about that fall under this genre, things like Boys Don't Cry or Heavenly Creatures or To Die For. Like, that's true crime. But to me, there is a humanity and a poetry and an artistry to them. And when I think about things that are very, very powerful and compelling, they're often true stories that have been dramatized, and you're telling, you know, real things that people experience. So what is more interesting or gets closer to the heart of what we tell stories for in the first place than that? Um, yeah.
Like in the act, the case in a friend of the family was also preceded by a documentary that got a lot of attention. Why do you feel the need to tell the story in this way?
That's a great question. Because when I saw the documentary, which is how I first heard about the Broberg story, my reaction was very similar to the reaction of a lot of audiences, which is shock, incredulity, and judgment. You go, how could they have made these choices? How could this have happened? I don't understand. And you feel very at a distance from the people, or at least some of them in the documentary. Um, After I read that, or after I saw that, because I was so haunted by it and curious, I read their book. And the book gave me more insight than you can get from a 90-minute thing, just because of the time constraints in telling the story in the documentary. I thought the documentary was great, don't get me wrong. But when I was able to immerse myself in their world a little bit more and understand the time that it took for him to groom them and get inside their home and exploit their weaknesses, I was able to understand the story from the inside more, which makes it harder to judge. And I wanted to dramatize the story over the time that it deserved, and use the dramatization process to get deeper into their emotional life and inside their home.
Yeah, talking about that, what did Jan Broberg's direct involvement bring in to what became a friend of a family?
Oh my God, was essential to the project. Obviously, we could not and we would not have done the show without her blessing and her active participation. So she came into the writer's room, she talked to the writers, she answered hours of questions. She was so generous with her time. And then she came to set when we were shooting. She and her mother were both on set and they watched some scenes being filmed. She also gave us resources that, boxes and boxes of childhood diaries, notes and letters that he sent her, gifts that he sent her, FBI transcripts, court transcripts. I mean, it's thousands of pages. It's amazing. And so it was
Wow.
incredible to have that resource and feel like we were really telling a truthful, both emotionally and literally, version of the story.
Yeah, I think that. How do you think the relationship between the Brokebags and B was possible? And as a screenwriter, how do you put that on paper in a way that doesn't seem so hard to believe? Because this story is so hard to believe.
Well, everybody has vulnerabilities that, somebody who really knows us or who we really trust can use against us. We might not have done exactly the same thing that the Brobergs did, but we could do things that we wouldn't expect if somebody manipulated us in just the right way. So to answer your question, I think it was first most essential to show that the family trusted this man and to show that he was a man who you wouldn't expect to harm you and who you would look to for protection, reassurance, and brotherhood. So that was the first thing.
Yeah, you saying like that. I think your series is more like a cult story, like people who was in the cult and after years realized that was nothing that he was thinking about, and
Totally.
less than a true crime story.
Yeah, he groomed them. And that's a word that has really kind of come into the public consciousness more in the last few years for whatever reason. But that's what he did. I mean, he was masterful at it, and um, it was insidious, and it took years, and they were basically brainwashed. And also, he understood the context of their community. They live in a community and in a religion that prizes forgiveness, family, brotherhood. Those are the most important things. And so he was able to use those values against them. But those are the same values that they used to forgive each other and to heal at the end. And I always found that really interesting.
Yes, it is. Oh, by the way, as a screenwriter, how do you see the relationship between casting and the script? And how much did this particular casting, which I think was excellent, bring to your script?
Well, we can write a good script, but it's not worth that much if there aren't good actors to perform it. So in this particular case, it was so vital that we have somebody who could play B and make you understand that this is a person who you would trust and respect and admire and let into your life, and also have that darkness and be convincing in both ways. And I love Jake. He was incredible in every way on set. And also on the other end of the spectrum, you have child actors playing Jan Hendricks, and then McKenna takes over in the middle of the season, and both of them have to embody the innocence and then also the tragedy and growing maturity in this child. And so if we hadn't found the perfect people for those roles, I think it wouldn't work. So it was a very careful and ultimately very productive casting process.
Yeah, good. To wrap up, what were your main influences in creating A Friend of the Family?
Great question. Well, in consultation with Eliza Hittman, who directed the pilot, and the rest of the creative team, I thought a lot about films like Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore,
Oh, very good.
Badlands. We watched Badlands. And I also read The Executioner's Song over like a couple times in the year or two beforehand, just to live in that world a little bit more. I also read early Judy Blume books about being a young teenage girl in the 1970s. And I just, we all tried to immerse ourselves in the vibe and feeling of that time through literature and film, and then let that flow into the aesthetic of the show.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Thank
It
you.
was a great time.
Great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.